Hello, my name is Tom Stiles, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show number. I have no idea what number it is. Not important. Who's counting? Anyway, so you got your Bowfang HT. Everybody's getting them. Now, you got to figure out how to use it, what to do with it. Well, I got a book from the library. Brand new book. It was published this year, 2013. And the name of it is Ham Radio for Dummies. Well, I can relate to that. And it's kind of, I'm kind of got mixed emotions about these dummy books. I don't like the name number one. But, if you're really starting out on something, this series of books are very good. Now, for instance, if I wanted to learn how to weld, I don't know anything about welding. I don't know, what's the difference between an arc welder and a gas welder. So, if they had which they probably do, if they had a book for welding for dummies, I'd go get it, It'd get me going. Now, of course, you can always go search the internet, but it takes time, and you have to go, you have to go there, you have to go here, go there, go to a lot of web pages that are no good. But these books, that's one thing I think they're valuable for, is they bring all the information and put it in one thing that you can scan through and find the information. So anyway, today I want to talk about this little book. It's available now, Ham Radio for Dummies. So we'll start going through it. If you fall asleep, that's okay. I won't notice, so no problem. Anyway, so I printed out the table of contents to help me a little bit. So thank you for the message notice. So the first chapter is getting acquainted with ham radio, and basically what that chapter is kind of get you interested in ham radio. It tells you about what's available, what you can do. Kind of an introduction to get you excited about ham radio. Now, what is ham radio? Ham radio is so that you can transmit and receive on the amateur bands using your Bowfang radio, or any other radio for that matter. And there are certain bands you can operate on, and of course you have to have a license. This book tells you how to get a license. Not really that difficult. Okay, so that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is getting a handle on ham radio technology. What is the technology? What are the pieces that you would have in your ham shack? Antennas, tuners, antenna switches. Of course, if you're only using your Bowfang handheld, you don't need to know like garbage anyway. So it tells you a little bit about frequencies, what frequencies the amateur bands are, and kind of general information about the technology associated with ham radio. Exciting stuff, especially if you're new to this. Okay, chapter 3 is finding other hams for support, for mentors. They call people who help other hams are called Elmers. So it's good to find an Elmer. That's an existing ham that's been through the ropes. He knows all about it. He can answer your questions. So it tells you kind of how to find those kind of people through your local clubs and how to find your local clubs using the internet. And the other thing is there's this big society of hams called the ARRL, Amateur Radio League, which provides all these publications for hams. They provide that big ham radio handbook. It's got, it's like a Bible. It's a big, thick book with all kinds of information. They tell you about that and the benefits and, what you want to know. And they also talk about some of the specialty clubs, such as the satellite club, where you're using an amateur radio satellite that's up in the air and you're communicating to other hams throughout the world by using that satellite. There's a association or club or organization called AMSAT. Tell you about that, and various other ones. Okay, The next one is, the next section is about getting a license. So chapter 4 is figuring out the licensing system, how it works, how do you get a license, where do you apply, where do you take your test. And then the next section, which is chapter 5, tells you how to study for your license, where you can get study information. You can buy books that help you study, and it tells you, there are different classes of license. There's the novice or technician now is taking that one, the general class and the advanced class license. There's different licenses, and you have to take different exams, which get harder and harder as you go up in the license categories, which as you go up, you also get more privileges, you get to work on more frequencies, and this kind of guides you through that, how to take the test, where to take the test, so on. Actually, chapter 6 is taking the test and how to prepare for it, what it's going to be like, kind of give you a feel for, what's going to happen when you go in to take that test. So it's not just completely catch you off guard, and like you're worrying about the test, what it's going to be like, are these people going to be mean, whatever. Nah, they're going to be mean. Next one is actually obtaining your license after you've passed the test. How do you physically get your license and your call sign? So you need a call sign. So that's the section on getting a license. Now we get into part 3, which is called hamming it up. And the first chapter is chapter 8, which is making a contact. How do you make your first contact? How do you call somebody, on the radio? Breaker, good. No, you don't do that. But it tells you in detail how to do that. And it also tells you about something a lot of my other subscribers are interested in, is just listening. What you can listen for. For instance, it tells you how to listen to single sideband, listen to digital signals, which are a part of the amateur radio field. You can transmit digitally using your computer and your radios. And how to listen to that. Listening to FM channels. Okay, I don't know about that. Listening to Morse code. Okay. Listening to HF radio. Now let's just go to that. Just see what's in there. Page 102. Let's see if it really has any good information, or if it's just blah 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 blah. Okay, listening to HF. Okay, it has in here. Let me show you to you, and you probably can't see it. It's out of focus, I'm sure. Oh, well, anyway, that table is the activity map for HF bands, which is I've talked about before, and it has each of the bands. This is amateur radio bands now, so it starts at 160 meters and goes down to 10 meters. Tells you the frequency of that band in megahertz. So for instance, we'll just dive in here. 40 meters is, in the amateur radio, is 7.000 megahertz to 7.125 megahertz. There's different modes. Different modes, you operate in different parts of the frequency. That's for CW, RTTY, and data modes. So that part of the 40 meter amateur radio band. Now, the other part of that band for voice and image modes, which means you can, via your computer and your radio, you can actually transmit an image, like a JPEG image through your radio, and somebody can receive it and decode it. Anyway, for that 40 meter band, that is 7.125 to 7.3. So they give you this nice table that tells you what the bands are about. So that's listening on HF. Now the very next section, again related to HF, is adjusting your listening. No, you can't see that. Anyway, adjusting your listening for the time of day. When to listen, where on the bands, what time of day. So, for instance, it lists the HF bands, again, amateur radio bands, and again we pick 40 meters, And it says in the daytime, local and regional out to 300 miles. So it says that during the daytime, on the 40-meter band, amateur radio band, you can only expect to receive signals 300 to 400 miles out. Pretty close. At night, short range, you can receive 20 to 30 miles, and medium range, you can receive up to 150 miles to around the world. Okay, so that's a nice, useful little, again, it's information you can get off the internet, but it's all in this one book. Okay, so that's that. Now, next chapter, chapter 9, is listed as casual operating. How do you just kind of, use the radio? And it talks into using FM and using repeaters. Tells you about, repeaters and stuff like that. How to set up your repeaters. How to set up your radio to use a repeater. Which, what that does is you transmit to this tower that receives your section, receives your transmission, and then it repeats it back out at a higher amplitude, at a higher wattage, higher power. What am I trying to say? Power, higher power, and therefore you boost your signal so that you can get further away and talk to people further away, and vice versa. People that are further away can talk to you. So that's the concept of repeaters. Tells you how that works and all that stuff. How to set up your radio to do that. Okay. Chapter 10 is related to using your radio as a method of communications in an emergency. Now that's another whole big facet, and that's the one facet of amateur radio that is catching on, is providing a means of communication when there's a disaster, a hurricane, tornado, and everything is down. The phones are down, your cell phones don't work. You can use your radio to communicate with people. And it talks about that and how you get into that, how you become a part of that emergency network. They have a network. So it talks all about that. Okay, let's go right on. So we're moving right along. The next section is chapter 11, and it's all about specialties within the amateur band. So, for instance, how to get in and use some of the digital modes, hooking your transceiver, your HT for instance, or your desktop transceiver to your computer, and using software so that you can send and receive digital modes. And that's really fascinating. I was into that years ago. I'm getting back into that as far as receiving. I mean, to me it's exciting to hear the radio going, not knowing any idea what that is, having that plug that into my computer, and it decodes it, and it decodes it into text or a picture, whatever. And you can do that just using a shortwave receiver. You don't have to have a transceiver. You don't have to have a Bofang radio. You can use your Grundig radios and decode that data that's being transmitted. And that not only includes the amateur bands, but includes all bands. For instance, they still transmit weather pictures, graphs, on HF. And it was originally designed for ships at sea to be able to receive weather maps, what the conditions were, on a shortwave receiver. That's still going on. You can still hear that. There's program software that will decode that. I think it's really exciting. And sure, you can go on your cable TV and get this stuff in 24/7, but it's just not exciting. And you don't get some information you don't get on TV because they screen it out. You think it's, all right, it's going to be boring. We're not going to show this to the viewers. Anyway, I don't know, why did I get off of that? So anyway, this section talks about all the different kinds of modes. Packet mode, PSK mode, operating the satellites. Like I mentioned, that you can talk via satellites, the Amateur Radio Amateur Radio Society funds putting satellites into space that the amateurs can use to communicate up and down. And so like here in Florida, when that satellite comes over, I can send a signal to it. It will repeat it back down, and it will cover, half of the globe. And so it's like a, like I say, it's like a repeater in the sky. Great. It's really fun. Again, you can just listen. Okay, chapter 12 is, I'm almost done, so don't get, wake up! Chapter 12 is getting on the air. What do you have to do to get on the air? The radios you need. You might need something besides your Bofang. And your antennas. How are you going to hook up your antennas? General information about that, about getting on the air. Chapter 13 is organizing your shack. Well, that's something I need to do, is organize. No, we'll skip over that chapter. It's too embarrassing. Chapter 14 is housekeeping. And by that they mean maintaining logs and getting QSL cards. I think I mentioned that before on one of the other shows, where you receive something or you talk to somebody, in this case on amateur radio, and you want to document that. So you make, buy, steal these little cards that say, your call sign, have a little picture or whatever, and then you can send that via that old technology called snail mail, and they get a little card in the mail, and they can post they can paste on their wall, and it's kind of exciting. I still like to get things in the mail, especially stuff from Amazon. I go to my Amazon store, Okay. Chapter 15 is hands-on radio. Some of it sounds like duplication, but it's not really. And this talks about the tools for maintaining and enhancing your amateur radio setup, your equipment. So, and troubleshooting your station if you got a problem with the antenna, goes into that. Okay, I'm almost there. Chapter 16 is 10 secrets for beginners. And like the first secret is listen, listen, listen. I always like that. And then there's another one like practice courtesy. That's a good idea. So it's just kind of a general information of how to be a good guy on amateur radio. Chapter 17 is 10 secrets of the masters. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. And 18 is 10 first station tips. And again, more kind of general information. And chapter 19, the last chapter, is 10 easy ways to have fun on the radio. I think that would be like chapter 1. Okay. Anyway, then it's got a couple of appendix. Appendix B is references to stuff that's on the internet, where you find more information. So anyway, that's my review of the book. I think, for a beginner, this is an excellent book. If you just got your old Bofang, you need to get this book. If you're an old crony like me and been in the amateur radio for a long time, it's good. What's the word I'm looking for? Something to I can't remember. Something to restore information in your little brain that's gone dead. Refresher. It's good refresher information for the old cronies like myself. So I think this is well worth it. Let's see. The retail price is $24.95, but I bet you can get it in my amateur radio store for a lot less. I better go put that in my store, right? Okay, that's the show for today. If this was of any value, if you didn't fall asleep, actually, if you fell asleep, that helps. You always need to get some sleep. Please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.